Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bad Hasbara.
Adam, why don't you take this time?
The world's most moral podcast.
Oh, that sounds
Hey,
good.
hell yeah, sounds sexy. My name is Matt Lieb. I am the world's most moral co-host.
I'm Daniel Mate. I'm the other world's most moral co-host.
I'm third guy, Adam.
That's producer Adam, the world's most moral producer named Adam.
Out from behind the curtain where he belongs.
That's right. The reason we are all gathered here today to speak with you is because this is a very special episode of this podcast, as it is a clip show. I'm sorry.
It's a very special episode. It makes me think this is the episode where Matt learns it's bad to touch people where they don't want to be touched.
I'm cutting.
Man, I'm gonna go with drugs or
Yeah. Or it could be that.
No, but you went
where
straight.
Daniel learns that glue is for sticking, not for sniffing.
Why does Matt have to learn about non-consensual touch? Maybe he already knows about it. Very special
Traditionally,
episode.
when a TV show runs out of money toward the end of the season, they'll produce a clip show. We don't make any money, but we're still doing it.
That's right. Yeah, this is special because not because we are doing this for the month. No, it's that we could, if you enjoy it. You see, what this clip show is three wonderful sections from three amazing podcasts that we did over the last year with people who we put on behind a paywall. These are all Patreon exclusive episodes, and
we keep these guests in our pay dungeon.
That's
each
right,
behind their own paywall. They actually live there. They
live there, waiting for us to just kind of like pull them out like a show horse and start trotting for all of the pay piggies.
And if you don't pay to hear them, then no one can hear them.
Exactly.
Scream. I mean, opine. I mean, analyze. I mean,
that's right. If a tree falls in the woods and no one is paying $5 or more a month to
less Patreon fees.
Yes. Then does it exist? So the point is that these are some sections from three great episodes that were just for patrons only, and we wanted to share them with you because we think that they're great. We want you to see them, and then also, of course, encourage you, if you want to this holiday season, join the Patreon. You can, and we encourage it, and we would love that. But also, you don't have to if you don't want to.
But we would love health insurance.
Yeah.
It's the perfect Christmas or Hanukkah gift for anyone that you want to profoundly confuse.
Yes, exactly. Like, say you have an uncle who is an ardent Zionist and who hates jokes. Give it to them and then see if they're just like, what is this shit? That's funny. That'll be funny for us. It's also great for someone who is, out there like, hey, I really love the show. I wish I could afford the Patreon. You can now gift Patreon's subscriptions to other people. So, give it to a friend, give it to a family member, a colleague, whoever. And but if not, it's fine. You don't have to. But please enjoy this very clip-heavy episode.
Should we just tell people a little bit about who they're getting to hear?
Oh, yeah. You're going to be hearing from three great guests. One is Asa Winstanley of the Electronic Intifada. Right after he was raided by police, he was raided in England.
For altruistic reasons, not the usual British reasons for getting
not the
raided by
usual,
the police.
Right, exactly. Not the
No
British
Savile.
Yes, no Savile, no, fish and chips heist. This was due to, of course, the fact that, England is a police state and they don't like what he's writing about. I believe they were trying to say he was doing something terrorism related or something. I don't know. You'll see in the episode clip that we have. We also have from the Blowback podcast, Noah Colwyn, who came on and talked to us about his story and his life. And it's a great episode. And then finally, Ephraim Menick from Godspeed, You Black Emperor, came on to talk to us, which was incredible because he doesn't do interviews. He, in general, he seems to not fuck around with the.
He doesn't speak much. He doesn't sing much.
No,
their band has no lyrics.
Yeah, it's instrumentals and it's badass, and
He said the listenership was low enough that this is the same as not doing an interview.
Right. Exactly. And so, yeah, it's a great interview, and we have a great little excerpt from it that we wanted you guys to hear. So, yeah, sit back, relax, drink some hot cocoa, gather around the Christmas tree or the Hanukkah bush or the Kwanzaa bed, and and enjoy this very special clip show of Bad Hasbara. Oh, and one more thing. We are very, very close to some pretty big milestones for us here at the Bad Hasbara podcast. We are almost at 30,000 YouTube subscribers, which is crazy. That's crazy. This is, 1 year. This podcast has been around for 1 year, and that is incredible. So if you want to help us reach that milestone, just press subscribe. It's that easy. The fact that you haven't yet says a lot about you. The other milestone...
It does help the algorithm, folks. It really does help.
It really does. It really does. So, please do that if you haven't. And also, we are really close to 3,000 patrons, which is incredible for us. You can join now, patreon.com/badhasbara. You can join for the $5 tier or more, where you get, these bonus episodes. Or you can join for free, and that's where you'll be able to, you won't be able to get any bonus things, but you will be able to hear about what things are coming out, and an episode might grab you, and you might say, hey, I'd like to pay for that. So please join the Patreon, patreon.com/badhasbara. All right, everyone, time for you to sit back, relax, and enjoy this special episode. Bye.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still here, so don't leave.
We invented the cherry tomato and Waves USB drives and the Iron Dome. Israeli salad, Uzi, Stenson, Jaffa's orange grow. Microchips is us, iPhone cameras us, taco salads us, Podalabamos us, Olive Garden us, White Cross for us, Sabra Hamas, Hasbara sus.
What do you make of, this is a bit of a pivot, but Piers Morgan has become such a major content factory in the past year. And he's made his entire brand now about being a Jerry Springer for sometimes semi-substantive and sometimes very substantive debates, but always with as much hoopla and fanfare and nonsense as well mixed in. I don't know what to make of him, because on the one hand, he's platformed Norman Finkelstein many times, long form, given Norman time to stretch out. He's platformed two people I'm closely related to, my father and my brother. I'm still waiting for his invitation for myself.
Yeah, what the fuck?
He's platformed your wife, Matt?
He's platformed my wife.
Why is he boycotting Bad Hasbara?
Yeah, so Asa, why? That's our question to you. How come Piers Morgan won't talk to us? No, keep going, Daniel. I'm sorry.
Whose knob do we have to polish to get on the Piers Morgan show? But then he'll have on a clown like Rabbi Shmuley or Dershowitz, and the way he moderates it often is just to let people shout over each other. Right. And I'm sitting there watching my dear brother do heroic work, but at the same time I'm thinking of Chomsky's. I'm like, is this show doing more good than harm, or is it doing more harm than good? I feel like it's probably doing more good than harm, because these voices are getting out there. But then I think of Chomsky's dictum about how the way to really control a liberal propaganda system is to allow vigorous debate within very limited bounds, and that's actually not true, because he does allow people on with radical views from the ones I mentioned, but at the same time, his presence there, Piers' presence at the center of the show as this sort of immovable stick in the mud of no matter how many facts you give me,
He's a
no matter what you
perpetual
tell
child.
me, he's a perpetual confused child being like,
Yeah.
but I heard there were beheaded babies, but
Yeah.
I heard there were rapes, and I still can't get over that, even if everything you're saying is true. So what do you make of that platform? What does it say about the moment? Do you have anything to say at all about that circus?
Yeah. Piers Morgan's an interesting character. I mean, I can shed a little bit more light on his history from the British perspective. Didn't he briefly have a career in the United
For
States?
a second. Yeah, he took over Larry King's show on CNN, and everyone hated him. And they were like, who is this guy? And then he lost that show, and he sailed
Why did
back.
he lose the show then? Was it literally like the viewers just didn't take to him?
Americans don't really go for that, like, combination of pomp and no circumstance. Like, like he's like the second dumbest kid in class whose saving grace is that there's like one kid with learning disabilities below him who he can gang up with the mean kids. And he's like he's
Americans like a certain type of like British guy, but he's actually kind of the rare uncharming British guy, where it's like we're not charmed by his lovely jubbly, and then he's just fucking spouting talking points and being like completely confrontational for the sake of just trying to bank off of confrontation, and it's weird. I think he also was taking over a spot from someone who was a thoughtful interviewer, even if he was kind of, Larry King is a classic, but he's a basic guy. And I mean, he's just like, he's a worm. He's a very unlikable worm. And I think
Piers Morgan's background is in Fleet Street, in Britain's tabloid journalist industry. He was
my mind went to Sweeney Todd for a second. I'm like,
the demon barber.
The demon barber of Fleet Street. Well, this is where all the newspapers were, or really used to be based, in London. And he was the really interesting thing about his background is he was the editor of The Mirror, which was Britain's second or third most popular tabloid, ostensibly targeted at a working class audience, traditionally aligned with the Labour Party, including the neoliberal Labour Party. And actually, to be fair to him, there was a period in the early 2000s when The Mirror was genuinely good. There was a brief moment under his editorialship when it was actually excellent. I don't know what totally happened. I mean, I have my thoughts about it. And this was during the lead up to the Iraq War and the beginning of the Iraq War. He did some really good stuff there, I have to say.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
I mean, I'll never forget. I've still got some of the newspapers. Like, he called John Pilger back to write for The Mirror for like a mass audience. This was a circulation of millions of copies. Not quite as popular as The Sun, which is the main tabloid, which is a disgusting Rupert Murdoch right wing rag, which just literally makes up stuff. And it had some fantastic front pages. Like, the classic one was like it was a speech by George W. Bush, and it was talking about the reasons for the impending invasion. And I forget how it exactly went, but basically it took the headlines of his speech and it replaced some of the words with the logos of oil companies. So yeah, you can sort of Google that, and it's probably still out there somewhere. There was and he was like, the paper rallied people to literally to demonstrations. So, they had the map for the anti-war demonstrations and whatnot.
Wow.
Now, it was quite amazing, actually. It was a generally good newspaper for a hot moment. I don't know all the reasons for that. It may have been purely cynical. It may have been Piers Morgan thinking, well, hang on, this is a huge popular movement. We can make some money off the back of this.
Sure.
I would like to think it wasn't purely cynical, but I don't know totally what happened. There was a scandal a few years later where the paper, and this is what led to his demise at the paper, was the paper obtained photos which was said to portray torture by British troops in Iraq of Iraqi civilians. It turned out that those photos were faked, that although there's no doubt that British soldiers did torture Iraqi civilians in a similar way to Abu
Ghraib.
To Abu Ghraib. These photos weren't quite as explicit, terrible as those, but they were bad enough. That led to his downfall at the paper. But then he got into mass media broadcasting, and he seemed to become more and more sensational. So that's his background, and he just seems to have leaned into that more in the internet area, where he has even now I think now it's just a pure YouTube channel.
Yeah, it is just a YouTube channel,
and it's it does very well on clicks, and it's all about. It seems to be engagement farming essentially.
Francesca had a fantastic exchange with him where she just called him out. She's like, "Come on, Piers, come on, you're in this for the clicks just as much as I am."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But do you think it's been a net benefit, net neutral in terms of the presence of that platform as feeding us these clips of people yelling at each other, but saying some things that other people wouldn't get to hear otherwise?
I don't pay that much attention to the channel, to be honest with you. Even when there's good people on it, I tend not to make it very far in the videos, because he has, as you mentioned, he has this sort of stubborn brick wall of, well, actually this and this happened that we know didn't happen.
Right.
And I just I don't have much time for it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It is. It's an interesting question, because I think it's something, I've been wrestling with, because, in the United States, because of the almost complete lack of anyone even coming close to allowing a pro-Palestinian voice to fully express the facts of what's going on. It's like you end up cheering for anything at all in which someone, there was a clip going around of this is obviously another British guy, but Andrew Garfield saying something at some event in which he said,
"Hold on, Andrew Garfield is British."
Yeah.
He sure does a credible American. I've only
Where's
ever
the
seen
other Spider-Man. Tom Holland is British too.
Right, yeah.
Toby is the OG is the only American and only member of the Pussy Posse of the three.
I was impressed. Andrew Garfield starred in...
You don't know the Pussy Posse? All right. So in the 90s, Leonardo DiCaprio had a little crew of sycophantic wieners who were just other actors, and they called themselves the Pussy Posse. And it's a terrible country, Asa.
Well, I'm speaking from Britain, so
that's true. Also a terrible country. Yes, E from Entourage, Ethan Suplee. So we kind of latch on to anything that is remotely sounds like a critique from a mainstream figure. So Jon Stewart does the Daily Show every Monday now, and he's had a few moments of what I would call like liberal Zionist takes, but really going hard on Netanyahu, which it's just weird, because it's like you appreciate anything.
Yeah. These moments of exasperated honesty with U.S. foreign policy too, with the Democrats, and that has a certain cathartic value. And then you wish you would go further,
right? And it makes me, it makes me think of, like you were saying, Daniel, this like Chomsky thing of like, if you set these like very narrow parameters, then you can almost make a substantive critique of something, and then people will be satisfied with someone saying something, so. Piers Morgan, it's hard to tell, because it is genuinely surprising to see such a, I don't know, like such a full-grown baby allow himself to be shit on by people that he's bringing on his show who are kind of spitting facts, I would say.
But it's an open question how much truth can really get spat in an environment like that. Like, friend of the show Bassem Youssef just went on, and a lot of people have been dragging him, not just for going on for more you know, for Piers to clip more content from that. But also you end up in that arena debating on Piers's terms.
Right.
And now you're talking about whether the resistance is justified, and you're ceding ground
Right.
where in ways that play to a more mainstream audience,
And
in ways that can undermine. Yeah, go ahead.
It's also his obsession with the sort of gotcha question, you know.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, the figures that he's interviewing, you know, people like your brother, a really respected journalist, my friend, the musician and researcher Loki.
Oh, cool.
Has been on it a couple of times, and he did really well on that.
That's great. Yeah.
But we're not people with power. We're not people with political power to be interrogated in the way as if, you know, and he'll say, well, I also challenge Israelis. But why are you equating us? You
Right.
know, why are you equating?
Yeah, one person is literally a spokesperson or diplomat for Israel, and the other person is like, I'm a streamer.
Yeah, we're journalists. You
Right.
know, why are you equating that as someone to sort of interrogate in that way? And that's what I don't really accept. You know? I don't like this sort of gotcha approach either.
Yeah. Yeah, it all, you know, just falls back into like, this is a guy who is, like you were saying, Daniel, the Jerry Springer of this particular subject.
I haven't watched the interview yet. I saw a clip. I know Bassem Youssef said something supportive of myself, so, you know, I appreciate that. But it does, you know, seem to. I don't know. It's like he's going on there and he's being disrespected essentially by the maybe not by, I don't know. Maybe I haven't watched the whole thing.
I would say,
it's not a good situation.
Yeah, I would say for the most part, I see the person I see being disrespected on that show is usually Piers, and sometimes it'll be a fight where he just, you know, is the fake referee for someone who's like a Zionist.
That's why I come back to the boarding school. I just it's almost like he's turned his social role in his private school upbringing into a career where like he's the least popular one in the room, but he maintains a certain degree of leverage or some kind of status.
Yeah, this is a thing of British. You know, the thing that's always baffled me about British private schools is they're called public schools.
I know. What is that? Why do you guys do that?
I think it's. I mean, I didn't go to a private school, so I don't totally understand the mentality. But what
are public schools called?
Yeah, the public schools
are called schools.
Oh man,
state schools.
I don't know.
I went to a comprehensive. They're called comprehensive schools. Although increasingly now they're called high schools after the American way. But no, I think, as I understand it, they're called public schools because they date back so far to when there was no schools. There were schools didn't exist unless you were wealthy.
Yeah,
and so as a family, you had a literal private school in your home.
Oh, so private school was being homeschooled in a public school.
It was public in the sense of you could go there.
People. Yeah,
but you still have to pay. I think that's what it is.
That makes enough sense that I'm like, okay, fine.
But it's led to this sort of ridiculous. It's a very stupid country.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we can't get into all of those. I don't know why.
It's a public school in the same way that a pub is a public house. Pub is short for.
I guess
it's a place for the public to come, but it can be privately owned.
Right.
Is there state pubs?
Unfortunately not.
Oh, see, I thought you guys had socialism. There is.
To correct that, there is a number of pubs in the House of Commons.
Oh,
are you state pubs
in Parliament? So I suppose those are state pubs.
Yeah, some British shit is cool. But I want to talk about this album that you just had come out.
Yeah, man.
Which has certainly made some waves within both within like the punk scene, but also in a larger, broader sense within the Jewish Canadian scene, based on the title of it. So you have a new album and you're starting your North American tour, is that right?
Yeah. This weekend. Yeah.
So, and I assume you'll be playing some from this album right here, which is called No Title, as of 13 February 2024, 28,340 dead. Which, when I saw that, I said, that's the coolest, most badass thing that I've seen come out of the music industry in a while. Just kind of any kind of acknowledgement of the current genocide in Gaza. What made you choose that title?
Well, okay. It's tricky because we're an instrumental band, and so we have to contextualize everything all the time. A lot of work goes into this act of contextualization, because
Sure.
we have no lyrics,
Sure.
and we don't want to make just feeling music, like
Right.
like I have feelings,
Yeah.
So that's always what the process has been. So like every record title is like, okay, mostly we're engaged with each other in a room together, but like what is happening right now. So a lot of the titles a lot of the previous record titles are sort of like reference state violence, whether it's overt violence or the violence of neglect, and then also what it is to be an individual within that state. So this one was a motherfucker because it didn't seem like any title felt kind of cutesy, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And then also, like there's a broad spectrum of left politics in the band, and so it's like everyone has to agree on the fucking title.
How many members currently?
There's 8 members,
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing is like when you hand in like the February date there is when the masters got handed in, So when you hand in the masters, it's like 7 months before the thing comes out,
Right.
So at first I was like, okay, no title. We'll just call it No Title. And then, the idea that here's this number, which at that point was already kind of an arbitrary number because the Gaza Health Ministry had been shut down. You know what I mean? Like the number had not gone up already at that point for a couple of weeks, so it's a stalled number, but it's like it's a demarcation. Like this is what the number is on this date. Best case scenario, the day after we handed the masters in, peace on earth prevailed and and the war ended. You know what I mean?
Right.
Best case scenario, it's like, okay, yeah, that happened. We still have to acknowledge it, but the bummer, like handing it in, it's like, okay, by the time this record comes out, the number is going to be, some multiple of that, and we still won't know what the fucking number is,
Right.
And then, the idea too, I mean, like we have lots of different type of people who like our music across a broad spectrum. So it's fucking depressing that just saying what the undercounted tally is on a date is a political gesture. That's fucking depressing, like that should just be a human gesture, like, can we at least agree on that, So a real brave title would have been Red Triangles, or Death to Israel.
Yeah.
Like, this is just like, can we just acknowledge this? And within the title, the only thing, the only gesture is we're not including the Israeli dead. Like this is Palestinian dead,
Yeah.
like this isn't a war, like this isn't the tragedy of, the human phenomena of war and people fucking die and it's sad,
It's amazing to me when politicians like Obama are like, it's been a year since the horrific attacks. So many people have died on both sides.
Yeah.
And I'm like, even if you're inclined to include the initial down payment of Israeli dead on day one, that's the only day on which you have Israeli civilian dead. You have to subdivide that number by the number killed by their own Hannibal directive.
Right.
And you'd have to wait until about October when Israel finally couldn't resist going into Lebanon, October of the following year, of this current year, to get any significant numbers, like large numbers of Israeli military dead too, in any, except like a one-off here, one-off there. It's incredible. And your number is so clearly lopsided. It's a brilliant move, I think. I think it's actually it's much more radical than some slogan or some fist in the air posture. Like just the raw data and naming and putting a date on it. This is what it was then. It raises the unspoken question: what is it now when you're listening to this?
It was also. Oh, sorry, I cut you off.
No, I'm done.
Sorry. It's also like it was a way to make whoever had to write about the record would have to tell on themselves or not in how they described what the number was referring to. You know what I mean? Like it was a way to force
CBC hosts.
Yeah.
Well, total except no CBC hosts, you know. But yeah, like it was again, I'm speaking from a place of privilege, so I'm just going to talk about my own experience. I'm not saying it's the most important. But, you know, in the litany of like kind of psychic warfare that we're on the receiving end of as like caring, thinking human beings is like the degradation of fucking language, you know, and the kind of like it's all just kind of normalized, this talking around shit. And the way language gets used creates a lived truth, you know, like it's really. So as a way to be like, okay, well, how are you going to describe this thing? Are you gonna fucking call it the Hamas-Israeli war? You know, like, right. Like, so it was being aware of that too. You know, yeah.
And this wasn't the first time that some Israeli atrocity had prompted a title for you, right? I did even just a cursory Wikipedia search reveals that. You had a song with a date of 09/15/00, as in September 15th, 2000.
Yeah.
And it's described in the liner notes of the album it's on as Ariel Sharon surrounded by 1,000 Israeli soldiers marching on Al-Haram al-Sharif, the Temple Mount, or the Dome of the Rock, and provoking another intifada. Right. Do you ever worry that I guess you don't have to worry that you'll run out of source material if you name your songs after Israeli atrocities?
Yeah. I mean, no, you know, like, I mean, I don't know. That's it. That one's hard because it's like some of the like less, you know, ungenerous politicized criticism of what we do together as a band has been that thing. Like, oh, you're profiting off.
Oh, sure, right.
Shit in the world, you know, like that kind of shit. You know,
you're talking to the Bad Hasbara podcast.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. We won't judge you.
Yeah. Totally.
I mean, literally all our source material is the terrible things Israel does.
Yeah, totally.
It's our Staatsräson.
Yes, we are. We've said this before. We are, once Israel is gone and Palestine is a single state, we are happy to convert back to just talking about The Wire and Mad Men. You know, that's all I've ever wanted, was to talk about my favorite TV shows. I didn't want to do this shit.
I want to do a podcast about my favorite Montreal bands.
Yes.
Len.
Len's Toronto, dude.
Oh, sorry.
Jesus.
Goddamn.
Come on.
Men Without Hats.
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Of Montreal, are they? I'm just kidding. They're from UC Santa Cruz. But I think one of the reasons why this album title, you know, stood out and, you know, was remarked on by people was because at the time that you were, you know, that the press releases were coming out saying this is what it was called, there was still, and we're still in this moment, kind of this, I don't know, cone of silence around this issue, especially in the music industry. The music industry was somehow worse than the like film industry in some ways, and I'm judging that sort of based on the Grammys. You know, I think this album was. I think the press releases went out either right before or right after the Grammys this year. I'm not entirely sure, but. I just remember there was an entire section about October 7th, you know, during the Grammys, and the I think Annie Lennox was the only person who actually said anything about what was happening in Gaza, and it was, you know, just a couple of words, much appreciated words, but just, you know, like no war or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's as much as you want to shit on yourself for being like, maybe we should have done the red triangles and put a picture of Sinwar with a heart on it. It's like it was, it did what I think great music does, especially great political music does, and makes an actual point that gets people talking.
Yeah, it's forced conversations in some
Yes.
ways, in a small way, just to be clear. I'm not, but and that's been gratifying,
Yeah.
and that's been gratifying.
Do you get pushback in your, I don't know, in your industry, or do you ever have you experienced in the last year anyone who has tried to, I don't know, get you to see for yourself what Israel's actually like, and like, has anyone tried to birthright you?
No, again, but like we've made particular decisions, a long time ago, so we're kind of sheltered from that stuff, like we definitely, when we were mouthy during the Bush years, we definitely got more of that, you know what I mean? And more reviews that would like reference like terrorist scrawl and this kind of shit, like this way to be like, this is, and we lived through all of that. So people, I mean, it's interesting. Like we just played a bunch of shows in Germany, and there are definitely promoters there we've worked with for years who won't book us anymore because of their fucking crazy
love of the Jewish people.
Yeah, they love us, dog.
But like there are people over there who've yelled at friends of mine who, when I see them, it's like, fucking yell at me, like what the fuck are you doing? But I don't know. We're already pretty isolated, so we're not really. We keep chugging along, but we're not. I don't know. I don't want to jinx it, Like,
I know.
But yeah, it's like nobody really. Everyone kind of. I don't know. We've already cut off access and shit like that, So yeah.
By not being on social media, you mean, or
no, by decisions we've made. Like there's things
sure.
that we don't get off, or like it's whatever. This is just boring industry shit, and it's all horse shit.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me because I see the way in which BDS specifically is a huge fear of I think a lot of Hasbaras out there. And because they, and I think rightfully, see culture as being something that can actually make a lasting material change if a culture, especially if everyone decides Israel is an apartheid state and they start acting like it is. And recently there was an article that came out in the Toronto Sun. Well, not recently. This was published in February 2024, just about how anti-Semitism in the music industry is a long-standing issue. And unfortunately for some, this was an article that was written by Warren Kinsella, who was the lead singer of the Hot Nasties. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Warren or anything, but yeah,
I know the name. I had no idea he was a lead singer of anything.
Yeah.
Just sounds like a standard name of a Canadian conservative newspaper pundit.
Yes.
Warren Kinsella.
Warren Kinsella.
Like the Hot Nasties is his weekend blues band or what? Like, because I think he is just a pundit.
Oh yeah. Well, it said this is how the Toronto Sun had. They said he was the lead singer of the Hot Nasties. But perhaps they are
a short-lived Guelph bar band.
Yeah, right. They sound great. But yeah, in the article, he goes on to. I mean, I just want to show you a little bit of it, just because I was just so taken aback at the very top of it, in which we've got Kinsella. Anti-Semitism in the music industry is a long-standing issue. And then a picture of Roger Waters, right there. And then, quote, "You fucking Jew." Now, anyone looking at this article immediately thinks that Roger Waters was yelling, "You fucking Jew" at someone, as it is a picture of him pointing.
Yeah.
And then quickly it's revealed once you scroll past the ads that that is what the big skinhead wearing Drown the Boat People t-shirt had just called the lead singer of the Calgary punk band, the Hot Nasties.
Hold on. So Warren Kinsella is not the lead singer of the Hot Nasties.
No.
I mean, this is what it said in the article. I don't know if Warren Kinsella is the lead singer of the Hot Nasties.
He's referring to
Toronto Sun thought he was.
Okay, I'm confused.
Well, let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens.
I believe he's talking about himself, but we'll see.
Oh my God, that's a really funny way to write.
Okay. Let's see. The Nasties had just finished their set at the University of Calgary's McEwen Hall, opening for the popular British punk band 999 when someone spotted the skinheads making Nazi salutes. The skinheads and his buddies continued to spew Jew hatred. The Hot Nasties lead singer and lead guitarist continued to tell the skinheads to shut up or else. The skinhead threw a punch, a fight erupted, the skinheads retreated, on that night at least, bloodied and bruised, but vowing to return. And they
Sounds
never...
like a really, really funny Kids in the Hall skit.
Yeah, I mean, especially him writing about himself. And they really never really left, because anti-Semitism remains a significant problem in popular culture and in the music industry in particular. We've been seeing plenty of it since the atrocities of October 7th. First of all, that entire anecdote was about a skinhead at a show that
when he was in college.
Yes, that got beat up by both the lead singer of the band and the crowd. And immediately it's like, yeah, there's a lot of anti-Semitism in the music industry.
Yeah.
Just completely extrapolating the fact that Nazis do exist and listen to music. And, these bands.
Yeah, you could also frame it as drunken hooliganism exists on Alberta college campuses.
Right.
At rock shows.
So now we're about to go from there's Nazi punks out there to here's all the people who are supporters of
We
BDS.
know there's Nazi punks out there.
Right.
The fucking
Yes.
wasn't the Dead Kennedys wrote a song telling them to fuck off?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, evidence that showed up again this week. Roger Waters, regarded as an anti-Semite by his own former bandmates in Pink Floyd, was this week dropped by his music publisher BMG, as Variety reported Rogers' anti-Semitic statements, quote, infuriated his former bandmates as they have driven off several suitors interested in acquiring the Wisening band's recorded music catalog, which was said to be on the market for $500 million, which is a very funny reason. That's, to me, I'm like...
Also, a funny use of the word wisening. I like the word wisening. Reflecting. Like the adjective I use when Pink Floyd comes to mind, I'm like, wisening.
Oh, you know,
but it's typical Canadian pundit prose, like overly, like just reaching for some fancy sounding word you haven't really checked out what it means.
Yeah, it's UCC talk. It's like I'm a really good boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, that it is a very wisening band. Let's be real. You know, I think it just means old in this case.
Yeah, aging.
Yeah, aging.
It's thesaurus talk is what it is.
Yeah. Other artists who have refused to perform in Israel or canceled gigs there because of pressure from anti-Semites who make up the BDS movement.
From the anti-Semites who make up the BDS movement.
Yes.
You know, like that's all it is.
Right. Include, but are by no means limited to, Rage Against the Machine, Cypress Hill, Patti Smith, The Strokes, Julian Casablancas, System of a Down's Serge Tankian, Questlove, Godspeed You Black Emperor, Shout Out, Run the Jewels, Anti-Flag, Santana, Sting, Lord, Lana Del Rey, Shakira, Elvis Costello, Lauryn Hill, Pharrell Williams, Snoop Dogg, Coldplay, Lenny Kravitz, Cassandra Wilson, Cat Power, and unfortunately many more.
All right, they got the punctuation on your band name wrong. That's how you punctuate the original source material after which you named the band, right?
No. We moved the exclamation point a few years ago.
What's that?
We moved the exclamation point many years ago.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Lined up with the movie thing. So
okay, got it. So on the album I've got here, you still had it at the end of the name, but now you've got it after the U. Okay, got it.
Now it's after you. Which I think one thing I really appreciated about this particular moment of I don't know, mass hysteria among Zionist pundits and writers is the confidence in like everyone agreeing with them to the point at which they're just going to make a list of what I would consider now cool bands.
Yeah.
Like that is, and it's great to hear. Like some of these things I didn't know. First of all, Lana Del Rey, shout out. Okay. I had no idea that the Strokes' Julian Casablancas was cool as shit, you know?
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg is doing BDS.
Yeah.
God bless him.
Yeah.
That's like this is all wonderful news.
It's a psychedelic list.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Unfortunately, it does go on to point out a few outliers, which is very sad. Some notable
Here we go.
artists who refuse to go along with the BDS bigotry, however, Nick Cave of The Birthday Party and Bad Seeds refused to cancel shows in Israel, memorably saying at the end of the day, there's maybe two reasons why I'm here. One is that I love Israel and I love the Israeli people, and two is to make a principled stand against anyone who tries to censor and silence musicians.
What bravery.
It's very brave. Tom York of Radiohead had... Sorry, Adam just wrote Snoop Dogg refuses to perform in
Israel.
Israel. Very good. Tom York of Radiohead had similar views, posting on X. We don't endorse Netanyahu any more than Donald Trump, but we still play in America. Music, art, and academia is about crossing borders, not building them.
Okay, can I say something about this motherfucker and that argument? Both those.
Yes, please do.
And Tom York are especially galling because Nick Cave, like, I speak for the dispossessed. I'm the heir of Johnny Cash or whatever. You know? And fucking Radiohead, who made bank by being like, we have politics and we have feelings, you know?
Yes.
Like, okay, first of all, when BDS approached them saying, please don't play these shows, we're fans, please don't play these shows, it was a different time. They could have just fucking ignored it. You know what I mean? They could have just played the fucking shows and some people would have been bummed. It wasn't like right now, you know what I mean? But instead, they had to be like, how dare you? I make art for people. And that's what
Yes.
And the fucking, sorry, can you bring that Tom York's quote back up again? Whoever.
Yeah.
So hang on. This, okay, the not endorsing thing. Okay. There is not, if there's a BDS thing for the United States and people were like, hey, please don't play America, America has to change and it needs to be, isolated in the world.
Right.
That would be a fair argument to make. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like leaving aside the fact that people who actually, as far as I can tell, God bless them, liked Radiohead were like, please don't fucking play these shows, please.
Yes.
And the reaction is like, fuck you. It's disgusting.
It's completely ego driven too, because that I saw in real time when that was happening, because I remember around the time this was happening. At the same time, Roger Waters was also trying to get them to not play in Israel, and I could tell that it felt. I mean, obviously there is a relationship. I believe Johnny Greenwood, their guitar player, is married to an Israeli. And I believe lives in Israel. But beyond that, with Tom York specifically, I could also tell it was just sort of an ego thing of like, but I'm the good politics guy.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that you see a lot with progressives who are being asked to talk about something that, if they're being honest, just makes them super uncomfortable, and they feel like they don't want to do it because it's a risk. It's a real risk. And that's not to say that, Radiohead hasn't made risks before talking about politics, but with this particular issue, you can tell that for them, just being told, hey, it's actually fucked up for you to do this, immediately causes this ego-driven reaction of like, well, fuck you. You think you know better than me? All my politics are good and smart because I'm good man. I'm good guy. You know, if you're yelling at me, you must be bad guy.
Well,
And-
it's the logic of an abusive partner. You know,
Yeah.
like any criticism is like how, you know, it's exactly that fucking thing. It's a bad human statement. You know, it's politically fucking disgusting. You know,
Yes.
but it's also just a bad human statement. You know, like it's gross.
It's also a mess too, like in terms of like the point that he's making there. Like, you know, we don't endorse Trump and we don't endorse Netanyahu, and it's like you are actually missing the point entirely. If this was
no one asks you not to play a country because they're unhappy with who got elected in that country last time.
Yeah. Like, and also framing it that way is completely fucked up because, you know, this idea of framing it as censorship. The only censorship that's actually happening is people being mad at you if you, you know, play there. No, you are not being censored. No one is actually stopping you. You're mad that people are mad at you about it, and you're probably mad that they have a point.
Yeah.
And also it's, you know, this is the same. It's an apartheid state. Do not play an apartheid state is what you're being asked. You're not being asked to not play there because Netanyahu sucks.
Yeah.
It's because the society is literally an apartheid society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Nick fucking Cave had a tour booked in Russia, and when Russia went into Ukraine, he canceled the fucking tour. So
Yes.
what the fuck, man? You know,
Yeah.
like is this a real value you have, or is it ideological? You're
Yeah.
revealing that it's fucking ideological. Like
Yeah.
Russians bad, Israelis good. Fuck you. You know?
Yeah.
And I happen to know there was disagreement inside the band in Radiohead, that there was a feeling among other members that, well, at the very least, we should play Ramallah too. You know, if we're going to go there, we should make a point by crossing that apartheid line, and that there's a strong sense that because of the domination of those two frontmen members of the group, that idea went by the wayside, and they just missed an opportunity to do something genuinely. Either don't play if you're gonna play, then do something that subverts
I would at least
that
have
dividing line.
I would have at least had seen it as an attempt, even if it was like, you know, ill-conceived, even if it kind of missed the point. I would have at least seen the attempt and appreciated it. But instead, you know, and this is all pre-October 7th.
That's it.
For me,
Long. Yeah.
as a, you know, as a very much a Radiohead fan, you know, someone who I was in high school when they were hitting their fucking peak. So like, this has been the most as a Radiohead fan as well as an acid Jew. This has been like incredibly
you Jew it
heartbreaking.
to yourself.
You Jew, that's why it really hurts. But yeah, like it's been incredibly heartbreaking to see them in particular, because like Hail to the Thief, you know, for me, I was like, it was a very, I was like, this is political, and it was, I loved it. And so when October 7th happened, I just in my head, I was like, please change Radiohead, please say something, say anything, please. And you've just seen this absolute silence.
I mean, my latest, the only thing I've heard Tom York say is that Radiohead is basically on permanent hiatus and no one wants to hear it from us anymore. So
yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't expect anything.
Is that, I mean, did he say that post October 7th?
Yeah, recently.
Regarding this issue?
Not regarding this issue, just regarding the future of the band.
See, this was my big fear, is that October 7th is going to break up Radiohead. that I'm sorry. But this is, you know, obviously there's a lot of other horrible things going on, but I was like, if this breaks up Radiohead, I'm going to be fucking hella sad.
The end of Radiohead is your own October 7th.
That's my October 7th, you know? So Noah, you're a Jew.
You're a Jew who does an excellent Israeli accent, if I remember correctly.
Oh, is that right?
It's pretty good. I mean, admittedly, it's been out of work for a while.
Sure.
How did you come by it? Were you a summer camp kid like me?
So I'll go a step further. I went to Israel as a teenager. Like I'd been as a kid to the summer program, went to like a summer camp where Zionism was a, like a major part of the content.
Right.
But
Do you mind
I
saying
would
which youth group or which?
no, it was. I went to a camp in Canada actually.
Which one was it? Gesher?
No, Masad in Winnipeg.
Okay. Wow. All right.
It was
Daniel's also a Canadian guy.
Yeah, I'm from Vancouver, and I went to a Habonim summer camp in British Columbia.
Okay, so yeah,
where
this
I, where
was.
I schooled Seth Rogen in the ways of Zionism.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed to have like maybe like half taken. I don't know.
Yeah,
it half took. Yeah.
Yeah. He. Not he. I went to. Yeah, I went to Zionist summer camp, but that was less meaningful. Like all of that was kind of like table setting for then when I like went for like a semester of high school, and like did a program in Israel and like really.
Or as they call it there, Haifa school.
I mean, this was this was similar. Like a lot of the youth groups and stuff. This was a reform movement one of different ones.
Okay.
And so this was a real. It was a like on a 16-year-old kid who like most 16-year-old kids hates being in high school and so on. It was like, this is awesome. I found meaning in life. And then I finished high school a semester early and went back and did a semester at Ben Gurion University in like the study abroad program there, and kind of realized that like this is not as simple or straightforward as I had thought. And sort of began.
What were you seeing that clued you into
that? There were a couple. Some of it was just conversations with people that really did not, just a kind of intolerance toward Arabs and Palestinians, like a base racism that is really like racism obviously exists in American public life in a meaningful way.
Sure.
But it was different. And it was from, people who do not code or who did not code as anything other than like, quote unquote progressive or bourgeois liberal types.
I think that's the jarring thing about it. And it's something that like the rest of at least American society who's paying attention has been exposed to, that they're like, whoa, what the fuck's going on? Because
Tel Aviv is the San Francisco of the Deep South.
Right. I mean, it's that's a good way of putting it, because it is like there is like a degree to which like, even when I went back and I, did, I spent time, I like went back mainly with the purpose of like going to the West Bank and meeting people or like interning at some human rights NGO or something. Where I didn't do even the little work I was given or something. Cause this was all like, I was very young, when all this happened. And, I just remember for me, probably like the real breaking point, was, when I went to, Hebron, and you can't really go to that city and like be, up front. Like it's just the most like, it's not like the way the occupation looks everywhere, but the way it looks there is such an exaggeration of all of the things about the occupation that are evil.
Yeah, I've not been there, but from what I can tell, it's very apartheidy.
It's where Coates starts his narrative of like he starts at Yad Vashem, but then he pivots to, and the next day I'm in Hebron,
because you can't,
and
like it's, you really can't. It's just so like visiting that like really triggered something. As did ultimately like when I was in college at UC Berkeley, I was very involved in the student arm of J Street, which was how I met a lot of people who are now doing, it was a really interesting time to be involved in that, because it was essentially a lot of kids who had grown up in like I did, like fundamentally Jewish milieus, mostly not, really not Orthodox, but somewhere, reform and conservative. And there was just like a really earnest belief that the Obama administration was serious about, negotiating a two-state solution and all these things. And the disillusionment that many of us felt over the course of those two administrations was so substantial, I think, that like it kind of combined with what many people had ultimately, which were real experiences in Israel and the West Bank that formed their perspective. I think people like almost everybody I worked with in those days, like J Street now is an organization that like until last week has been, backing the Biden policy in a lot of different important ways.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of the people who were in the organization kind of grew past that. And, I think the like last 10 years in particular have really been, this like process of where like the knowledge that like I do have from having been there and knowing something about the subject, but really largely having gone through like the disenchantment, is to me like that was actually like the most meaningful and insightful part of it. Like the idea of like, well, what was it about like the idea of Israel and Zionism that like held such sway for somebody like me? And what was it like to have had every, like there it's like it's just not a,
it's not easy. I mean, that is like the hardest part about the quote unquote like deprogramming is because it's not just about like learning facts, right? It's not even about seeing things with your own eyes. It's like at some point, like you said, you're going through this process of like, okay, I've seen with my own eyes. How do I still remain attached to this idea of Zionism, of Israel and whatnot, while simultaneously trying to make it more free for Palestinians? Eventually, like the thing that is required is deep introspection. And that's like asking someone to be looking at themselves is almost not practical.
I would add in defense of my opposition to myself, I don't think you have to even be a particularly introspective person to go through this kind of process. I think that one of the things that like that has been kind of seeded in like the discourse around Israel and around people's relationship to it is the degree that it's not like, oh my God, has like Israel corrupted American Jewish institutions and all that. Like the issues in American Jewish life like are much bigger than Israel and have to do with like the general like what purpose does a religious movement serve in a world where like nobody gives a shit about being religious, or the people who do are like increasingly reactionary and insular. It's that like when you like what feels like people leave is that like, oh no, like this isn't like what you see in Israel and like what you encounter is not normal. And to make it normal, you have to have had all of this pre-existing ideological conditioning, or to have been like exposed to like a different facet of like, the American media apparatus or whatever media apparatus that like can, gets you to like buy into it. Because it's not like if you believe on the most basic like elementary school level kind of like morality that you're brought up with, it's just not possible. It's just straight up not possible to rationalize unless you start accepting active truths that you say out loud, like, well, that's just how Arabs live. Things like that. That are just not. Yeah.
And the piece of introspection that I think is required, or at least helps a lot, the enzyme, let's say, the introspective enzyme that'll catalyze that reaction. And this is why, on some level, the mind doesn't want to go there, because you're going to have to give something up. You have to ask yourself, what am I getting out of holding on to this illusion? Why do I not want my illusions to be dissed? Why am I with Axl Rose saying I've worked too hard for my illusions just to throw them all away? One of my favorite lyrics.
Hell yeah.
And I think that it comes down to what Matt was saying about, I'm holding on to this idea of Jewish sovereignty and Jewish safety and Jewish strength and all that sort of stuff. And at the same time, I recognize Palestinians aren't free, and I want to work towards making them more free. But at a certain point, you realize the project of liberal Zionism is not to make Palestinians more free. It's to make yourself less uncomfortable with the ineluctable misalignment between what this ideology requires of you and what your heart or conscience or truer universalist values, the inevitable and irresolvable clash between your tribalism and your humanitarianism, and that making the and that Oslo and two states and land for peace and liberal Zionism and Shalom Achshav and all these things, for all of the good intentioned people involved in them over the years, have fundamentally been a project to buy time for the Zionist conscience. Don't make me give this up completely. I can't live without it.
Well,
I don't know who I'd be
without
it.
It becomes like, to me, the starkness of that choice became clear to me in sort of like abundance. Like I have like a couple like distinct memories from when I was in Israel. Like one summer I interned at an organization that was based in Tel Aviv, and I lived in a couple different parts of the city that summer. And I remember like, reading the headlines every day, and there were like race riots in Tel Aviv that summer. And you had a Likud member of Knesset, I remember God. She got up at a park, and there, so near outside of the Tel Aviv like bus station is a park where there's like a lot of African migrants, or at the time, I'm not like I don't know if it's still, but like who would essentially mill about because the Israeli government like essentially did not want to acknowledge them or offer them social services, and so they just kind of like let them be there. Right. And so then you had the member of the Likud, Miri Regev. A really nasty woman. She, gave a pretty infamous speech where she got up and said like Hasudanim hem sartan, like the Sudanese, they're a cancer. And it like that is like there's a lot, like again, like I think that now we say like, oh well, Donald Trump got up and said like all Mexicans are rapists. How different is that, between America and Israel? And like the kind of difference was just how easily like like Israelis put on like that, war, that dehumanization. And then when the time came to apply it to like the other that is universally, consented to as an other within society, the Palestinians, it just doesn't fucking matter. I mean, it just doesn't, like it was just
was
scary.
talking about African Jews, right?
Yeah. She was talking no she was talking about
migrants.
no she was talking about like migrants, because again, remember that this is also like Israel has like a really like the Israeli consciousness is like extremely white, even like though Israelis themselves obviously come from such a like like the majority of Israelis do not come from like European nations,
Right.
Yeah.
But Israelis and Israeli consciousness is like shaped around viewing themselves as like a beachhead of Western civilization.
Yeah, even the Mizrahim are whitewardly mobile.
Yeah, exactly. And so you get like a sense of like the Sudanese at a time when, by the way, like Israel had like at the time, like the year before the events that I'm describing, there had been like, social protests akin to Occupy where people pitched tents and so on. Like this is a country going through the typical, like at that time, what was happening everywhere in terms of in cost of living crises, housing, what have you, like social discontent on that level. And it's just that like Israel speed ran to, like literally let's run around and like light on fire like migrant like homes and refugee centers and things. I mean, it was really like that kind of reality just to experience like a bit of it.
Keep the homeless fires burning.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and again, like it's all like, again, not if all that stuff is like that exceptional. Like I'm sure if you go to countries in Europe, there are parts of the United States where everything I've just described happens. But again, what none of those places have is this, like, again, like a state sanctioned other who are like exist in permanent subjugation, and who by the nature of their subjugation will fight back, are going to be, like you could just imagine all of the different ways in which, again, like we arrive at the moment we're at now, where like when those people did fight back, like now, like they are like Israeli society and consciousness like can't be wound back. Like liberal Zionism, like liberal human values, as they're supposedly stated, like cannot be grafted onto a society that's already progressed to like a pretty terminal condition,
And I also think that like while other countries also do have their like right wing, psychopaths who are telling people to, burn down migrant camps and blah, 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 blah. I think one of the major differences, at least from my perspective as like an American, fucking guy, like
freaking American
a
guy,
fucking real American, is that the messaging around the support for Israel, it does not include this idea of there are some right-wing people, but there's also some left-wing people. It's more the messaging around it is whatever Israel does, there's a purpose and we support it. And so because of that, we don't really like. You're not going to see most politicians, trying to stop the Israeli right. Like occasionally you get your Bernie Sanders who talks about, this right wing, Likud party and whatnot.
If we could only get back to the good old days of Benny Gantz.
Right.
Well, the best test of this, of course, is the so-called America Firsters.
Yes,
and I'm not cynical enough to not hold out some hope somewhere in me that like some anti-deep state, anti-intelligence agency, anti-NATO sentiment, nativist sentiment might lead to some policies that are better for the American people. But then but in the next breath, you look, and Vivek Ramaswamy is saying, look, if Israel wants to go root out every member of Hamas all over the world and blow them up and blow up the entire municipal center that they happen to be stationed in and kill millions of, I think Israel should do that.
That to me though is like evidence though of like those are symptoms of like what I would call like decline. In the sense that like those are not actual like rival parts of the coalition that are meaningfully competing for power as represented through the avatars of like Matt Gaetz at AG, who hates Israel because he was allegedly blackmailed. His father was allegedly blackmailed by Israel.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is a story that like it's totally Googleable. Mark Caputo, the journalist, has a pretty good story about it from 2021.
This is side note, but that I was seeing that he didn't take APAC money, and then I was like, well, that seems interesting to me. So I Googled it, and I also found a bunch of like pro-Israel statements that he has given, which I thought was.
But he didn't vote for the anti-Semitism bill.
No, he didn't.
Yeah. He's like, fuck that. You're going to tell me I can't say the Jews killed Jesus?
Yeah,
I respected that. I was like, yeah, man.
Well, again, like I think,
but
part of that is he'll like I do agree and believe that he'll say anything to anybody.
100%. I went on his website and like he had a video he put out 6 days ago about how we should defund the UN and use that money to fund Israel, which I thought was like just that was a beautiful fiscal conservative neocon psychopath take. But
you were making a larger point about the jockeying for power and the decline.
So it's basically that like if you look at like an actual power analysis, like in the sense of like what are like the actual like stakeholders in the leadership of the American government, who determines our strategic outlook and our policy alliances, and it's like. Yeah, like the sort of outcomes, big picture, are clear. We are going to continue like using Ukraine as a proxy in a power competition with Russia. We are going to continue arming Israel to the teeth as it carries out a genocide, in part because it has like a disciplining effect on our enemies, knowing like what we'll be able, I'm just citing one of the many rationales that people can develop for like why would the U.S. do this with this? What is the kernel of rationality that people are clinging to when defending stuff that is like unconscionable and I would argue like pretty obviously strategically untenable. But like a Ramaswamy, like part of what like I think is sort of it shows just how Trump is like the mediatized people's candidate or media if you're consuming this is that like he's surrounded with people who play and talk every side of this and who can represent different things on the surface and give the appearance that there is something like if not like the most like it's like it's like Lincoln's team of rivals, except like they got hit with like the toxic sludge that guy got in from RoboCop. Like it's it's like such a disgusting like zombified version of like a normal concept, and it's because it doesn't actually correspond to the real underneath, which is that the U.S. has a gazillion reasons to continue arming Israel, as it did under the Democratic White House, and that it will surely do again now under the Republicans. And one other thing I would add there is that like the reason that I began with saying that that's a sign of decline is that like if you can't justify this just on a consistent basis, like the strategic value in the relationship anymore, and it has to like be justified through like discourse tricks, which is how I'd put it, like like through like a smoke and mirrors kind of process, then like what that suggests to you is that like this is a thing, again, I described Israeli society as being in a pretty terminal condition. I would say that the U.S.-Israel relationship is now in a terminal, it's like the fucker's ripe. It's not gonna, I don't think that and by the way, that ripeness can last decades more. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean to say that, oh yeah, and it means that by June next year, we're going to have Israteen. Like, that's not what I mean. It's like, I think that there is, but like there's, they're making decisions and setting themselves on like a historic trajectory that is like, to me, it just suggests that like, yeah, like these, like the basis of your whole podcast, like is in part because like this is like it is like the noise of their death rattle, right? And how long it is. How long and annoying it is.
It is fucking. It is. It's the fucking T-1000 melting in the fucking lava and just being like, I'm gonna change into every fucking guy I changed into this whole movie, and so you're watching what seems like very confused messaging for a country that's being like, we're a powerful nation who will destroy you. And also, I saw a quilt at the UN and it made me cry. I'm going to tell the teacher to take out the quilt, which is a story I have to play a little bit of for those of you who haven't seen it. At the UN, apparently there was something called like a peace quilt or something like that. Children made a bunch of different panels. Like they drew with colored pencil or whatever the fuck. And it says shit like peace and like, a globe and everyone's hugging it. And not in like a anti-Semitic Der Stürmer way, and then fucking what's the name of this fucking guy? He's the permanent representative to the UN, Israel's permanent representative, Danny Danon, went there and he shot this video, which we'll just take a look.
For a man named after a yogurt, he
sure has no culture.
He sure has no culture.
Well, you guys know, I mean, we'll get to this, but I do hope that you guys know about like his couch incident.
I do not know about his couch incident.
All right. Well, so we'll let's. I want to see this quilt episode, but then we'll like round it out. I'll send you the link for it. And then
yes, please do. Please do.
Here at the main entrance of the United Nations, where thousands of people are passing every day, the UN decided to put an exhibition about world peace. Look at the drawings of children from all around the world. Nothing about Israel. Nothing about our hostages. Look what they have. They don't recognize Israel. They promote.
So he is pointing to a panel on this wall of children's drawings. One of them has a piece of watermelon that looks like the borders of Israel / Palestine. And it says, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." And
I love this notion of, look at this whole quilt. Nothing about Israel.
Yeah, nothing about
it's
the
anti-Semitism by omission.
Yeah, exactly.
These disgusting children hope for an end to genocide. Shout out to producer Adam Levin.
Shout out to producer Adam. Here we go.
Hate in those drawings.
Hate. Look at all the hate.
That is shameful.
Teach peace, free Palestine. Peace comes from within. Peace, 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 peace.
Yeah, super hateful. But I love the way he ends this.
I demand that the UN will remove this exhibit immediately and will stop with the hypocrisy against Israel.
Oh man, just like calling for the removal of the children's like turkey hand paintings that say love is good is like fucking insane. And just
and that to Israel, like no speech, like no news is good news.
Uh-huh.
For Israel, no speech is hate speech. Like if you don't, if you're not talking about us, you hate us. If you are talking about us, you hate us. Anything that's not our official talking points about ourselves is an attack. And that is the fragility and brittleness and extreme volatility of bad Hasbara, because it requires constant revalidation.
Right. And within very specific parameters.
Yes.
Like the revalidation has to be what's on the fucking talking points memo, or else it's things
if
are.
If you're not reading your children official Tzahal press releases and teaching them word for word to.
If you're bleeding, you're bleeding. You know what I mean?
If Elon Levy is not your babysitter, the top of your babysitter club, you are a Nazi. Come on, no, I'm trying to
I
goad
mean,
you into
listen,
doing.
look,
He's looking for the couch
Yeah.
article. I could tell.
I really am. No, it's because I want to say. All right, so I'll tell you what it is from memory because I
From
remember
memory,
it, but I wanted
please.
to find like a source. So
Yeah.
Danone is like he's like that. Like a headline from like 11 years ago about him is like he's Israel's Ted Cruz. Like he's like
and
he's
that's a compliment.
no, it wasn't
Okay.
then for sure,
Okay,
but it
good,
was
good.
definitely. But the idea though is that it's but now look at him. He's in the fucking UN. So like, what the fuck does that tell you about like, oh, they're annoying guy, whatever.
Yeah, no.
So
yeah, no. They win.
but something
Those
that
guys
he
always
did.
win.
He was the representative of the UN, and there was an incident. Like Israel has very fucked up and weird relations with Turkey. Like Turkey is publicly, a conservative like Islamic country.
Right.
And the government at least, especially with under the AKP and Erdogan, and they publicly obviously positioned very strongly against Israel, but then privately there's meaningful trade and we can assume strategic relationships,
Right.
strategic relations that go on between them. However, like Israel had to, I remember this, that like there was like Danone gave some press thing where like he invited the guy in and they took photos to like, show like we're having like, this is us having like an incident, like we're expressing our discomfort at each other in this office. And then Danone is like turning to the reporters and he says, and as you can see, I've put him in a lower chair as a mark of shame. Like just telling the report, like what he's like, I remember, and it was, it was like, I'm sure like, it's frustrating because Google both sucks now and like the keywords for this story are like unfortunately obscured, but like, no, I have like very explicit memories of Danny Danone doing this. Like he's exactly the kind of guy who would be like, listen, the children on the quilt, Hamas. They're Hamas.
Quilt. Yeah, I mean, so he actually was he able to? Did he put him on the little couch? Did he put him?
I think
on
he
a
did,
little,
and it was like, and then, but the thing was, then like somebody's translating it, and it's like, wait, what the fuck? Like, I don't know if like the guy ran out of the room, but it was like subsequently, it was like viewed again because this was at a phase though when Israel did something like that, its hands got slapped.
Right.
Now the country's
Yeah.
comparatively like far more shameless.
Oh my God! Yeah, I've never seen. I mean, this video is a perfect example because I can't think of anything more shameless than being like, I'm going to tattle on the UN for the children's drawings, especially when like one of the biggest crimes you're accused of is just unrelenting child murder for the last year.
Well, I got an idea. They could take that quilt down, put it on the couch.
Yeah,
And then when JD Vance goes to visit, he'll be
get
really
fucked
happy
up
to.
quilt.
Oh, fuck the quilt on the couch.
Yeah. No, but it was funny though when people were saying he was a couch fucker. Like early, it was funny. I'll admit. But yeah. So the of course the way this story goes is they did not remove the quilt. They took down or they covered the panels that were offended.
They hunted the children down.
They hunted the children down.
And they re-educated them.
And yes, exactly. And even though the quilt was not fully removed, they, of course, Fox News just said it was. UN removes quilt panel artwork calling for Israel's extermination after facing backlash. They did not. So it is still
I'm sorry,
there.
sorry, I'm sorry.
Bradford Betts is like a Tech Mobile fake guy name.
What's that?
Bradford Betts.
Bradford Betts, dude.
Like, sorry, like making fun of names is corny. You
No,
didn't choose it
you're
for
100% right.
No, but to your point, like there is like a quality where like what they are trying to do pretty clearly to me, at least by doing that is like, well, like, when we do use exterminate with people and people compose a state, we are talking about the Holocaust usually. So
Yes.
therefore we can now acceptably use the term exterminate to talk about Israel.
Yeah, that's what they're doing, and it's always what they're doing. It's why they
It's
can
always
go
what
from.
they're doing.
it's why they can go from
It's like Scooby Doo. It's always a motherfucker in a mask.
Yeah, every single
It's
time.
always the same thing every goddamn time.
Yeah, and I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for. Never mind, I got away with it. And he did claim victory after they covered up some of the panels. I think they removed like a portion of the quilt and just just to round it out, this is
חשפתי את הצביעות של
yesterday.
האו"ם
I exposed the
בתערוכה של
hypocrisy in the
ציורי
UN.
שבהם
All right, these too fast. I exposed the hypocrisy of the UN through an exhibition featuring children's drawings,
שבהם מדינת ישראל
where the
לא
state of
חייבת
Israel was erased and filled with hateful imagery.
לאחר
And
שפניתי
after firmly addressing the UN leadership, he did not firmly address anyone. He made a video complaining to the mods.
Well, no, but he made a video complaining to the mod. He also probably like had an underling like go and like throw a fit in the outer room of like the Secretary General.
Someone
You know
was
what he
punching and
wants?
crying. Yeah.
He wants the biggest toddler in Israel to have his own panel on that quilt, which is Benjamin Netanyahu with his little diagram of the whole territory.
That's
you
right.
know.
Yeah, they want
That's true. It is like actually this makes so much more sense now because like Bibi loves props. He loves props.
I think all Israelis.
Actually,
love
wait,
props.
you guys should do. I watched a really good documentary recently.
Who got the props? Who got the props?
What's the talk?
King Bibi.
King Bibi.
It's made by Israeli journalists, and it's like it's not like it's the last part of it's like kind of meh, but it has like a great like it tells the story of Netanyahu's political career through like media essentially, which is a great prism to do it with, both because it means that like the thing is told pretty much exclusively through archival.
Yeah,
but it like shows you how much of like a trickster he's always been, and.
And his love of props.
Well, yeah, that goes into it.
He's the Gallagher of genociders.
Well, there's some woman who gave classes about like how to do public speaking and stuff. Like there's one clip ever of Netanyahu in his job as like a diplomat speaking in English where he looks like shit and he doesn't sound good and he's mumbling and it's like and like the people in the doc like put it like this is the last time you'll ever see him like this because then he does like these speaking courses and they play the tapes from the woman who does
he did
it and
Toastmasters Israel. Just to play off the rest of the video here, I just want to show how this goes. After firmly addressing the UN leadership, this exhibition was fixed. I love the fucking just this photo here. It's like
they brought in the Israeli Ray Donovan to fix it.
You can't actually tell what's been fixed. What you see is a ladder and a quilt, and it just this is
possibly one of the three quilts taken down. Like there's a big blank space on the wall. Now it's been fixed.
Yeah, look at this.
I fixed it for you. We fixed it for you.
Yeah. And these anti-Semitic drawings were removed from the walls. We will stand up for our truth.
Stand up for our truth.
And each time we witness acts of anti-Semitism or hypocrisy, we will confront them head on. There's something about the pettiness of which the pettiness that they'll allow themselves to like be caught up in, where they're like, we will not let a single act of anti-Semitism go. It's
well, because they view it. I mean, there is, they've also reached a point though where part of what they're like trying to combat is like the very they have now a worldview or like a system of belief about how anti-Semitism works, which is that like to stop the condition from spreading, you've got to attack the germs wherever they exist.
Yes, yeah.
And so that literally like it's and it's clearly, I mean, at least to me, it's like part of that is like a direct function of like like their material reality in that like they just don't have anything to do aside from post all day, and so like getting upset at stuff is and like it's like it makes total sense.
Relatable.
Exactly. No, it's extremely relatable. You understand why Zionism was so appealing to me at a young age. But
just combing through things looking for the germ of anti-Semitism because you don't want that shit to bloom.
Precisely. You can't let anything go because if you let something go, well, you may have just let the thing, you may have just let the fox in the hen house. Now,
exactly.
What foxes in the hen house do not count? The people who are like, as long as they're pro-Israel, but will like talk about like, Jews needing to all be in Israel so that Jesus can come back and stuff. That's okay. That's not a germ. That's actually that's like the good bacteria.
Right.
That doctors tell you about.
Exactly right. That's the good bacteria. That's 100% right. Because, it's for them, it really is, anti-Semitism has always just been a tool for the state of Israel to use to their advantage one way or the other. It's just very clear that, you know, you call out anti-Semitism whenever it's, you know, somehow will hurt the Zionist project, and you and then you say something isn't anti-Semitism, or you allow anti-Semitism when it strengthens the Zionist project, which is why, you know, evangelical Zionists are fucking like allowed to say shit like all the Jews should move back to Israel so that Jesus can come back and, you know, kill most of the Jews.
Shout out to the new UN ambassador Mike Huckabee.
Oh my God, yeah.
And of course, you know, as I've said 16 zillion times on this podcast, Israel and the Zionist project is the biggest anti-Semitism factory in the world that runs on its own effluent, like it runs on its own product.
Yeah.
It creates the anti-Semitism, it runs on it, it sources it from all over the world where it can't find it, it fabricates it.
Right.
Sometimes
I mean, that's
whole
where
cloth.
like it's nuts, and the extent to which also they both view this as an active policy in different circumstances. Like they'll pursue that, they will do things that they know stir things up, and then they will also, you know, unconsciously. I mean, like even through other designs, if it does happen, because you know they decide like, well, what if we like have our consul general meet with and like really blow a lot of hot air behind the sails of like college students in a given city to like target SJP, you know, if that makes people like get pissed about Jews, great, more people that come to Israel. I mean, where they really don't give a shit about this and where they actively foment the perception is in Europe, because they're convinced that like the next great meaningful immigration wave of like well-capitalized people that they can get are like Jews who have to leave Europe because they're scared of like Muslims. Which is an insane statement, I know.
Starting with, let's say, Amsterdam. Maybe that's what that whole debacle was about. Let's go source some. Let's go root some people up. Let's go talk to our potential next immigrants about how unsafe they are there. Let's go create the conditions on the ground where we would plausibly be a better option for them.
Yeah.
I think that there is with some of them too the like active thought that there is a part of what I think in general like feels that is like the actual active thought, which is not like, you know, like if we mess this shit up, these guys will move here because they realize how unsafe it is here. Like that's the like second order.
Right, of course. Yeah,
like what to me is always a part of it is like that they actually have like a real kind of like shocking amount of chauvinism about like Jewishness. And who is a Jew and who's not a Jew, and like when they encounter like and they are and being non-diaspora Jews out of Israel, like in the diaspora world, like they view themselves as, you know, it's like their new Jewitis, you know, it's like real intense.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. Thank you so much for watching that. Please like and subscribe, and please support us, patreon.com/badhasbara, or go to badhasbara.com.